There are places on Earth where the wind seems to whisper something that time could not delete. Places where stones are not just matter, they are memory. If you feel like certain things are no coincidence, maybe this video is what you needed to hear. Millennia ago, before the seas rose and erased half of human history, there were stone portals erected with impossible precision, monoliths that align with the stars, circles that vibrate with invisible frequencies, columns that seem to sing when the sun touches them. They were not temples, they were tickets, bridges between the earthly world and the divine. Imagine the night before the flood, the sky still full of familiar constellations, and men looking into infinity with the certainty that the stars responded. In each stone erected there was a call, a human attempt to dialogue with the cosmos, to remember the origin. Earth's ancient soul knew that stone was more than matter. It was the body of light petrified. But then came silence. The waters arrived like an oblivion, and what were once portals have become ruins. Today we look at them with modern eyes and call them archaeological mystery. What may have been the meeting point between heaven and spirit? There are chisel marks that do not belong to known tools. There are cuts so precise that they defy modern steel. And there is a question that insists on returning, like an echo that the wind has repeated for millennia. Why build something so colossal, just for nothing? Some call it a legend, others of legacy. But what if these stones are more than just souvenirs? What if they are doors, still dormant, that await the moment when the human remember again what it means to be divine? This is the starting point of our journey, understanding why people separated by oceans raised the same circles, worshipped the same stars and spoke of same storm, the flood that ended an age and sealed the portals. If something inside you is awakening, stay until the end. The answer may be here, because maybe the sky never left. Maybe we just forgot the way back. Long before borders and maps, there was a common language among people, that of stone and light. From the Anatolian desert to the Salisbury Valley, from the tops of the Andes to the plains of Lebanon, the ancient civilizations seemed to know the same secret, that certain forms, when erected at a certain point on Earth, they created harmony between the human and the divine. At Göbekli Tepe, in modern-day Turkey, T-shaped columns have rested beneath the sand for over 12,000 years. They were carved when the world was still emerging from the Ice Age, very before the pyramids of Egypt. Each points to specific constellations, as if the heaven had been engraved in stone so that it would never be forgotten. Archaeologists call it the first temple of humanity. But maybe it was something more. A way station, a place where consciousness crossed portals invisible, guided by sound and vibration. Centuries later in Baalbek, Lebanon, gigantic blocks of granite rest with impossible precision. The Pedra do Sul, weighing more than 1,000 tons, is laid with millimetric perfection. No modern engineer can explain how it was moved. Local legends say that angels placed it there, that it was a heavenly throne, a base of light erected before the flood. Perhaps the secret was not in strength, but in resonance. Understand the stone not as an obstacle, but as a frequency that responds to the will. Further west on the islands of Britain stands Stonehenge, a circle that marks the solstices with astronomical accuracy. When the sun rises on the summer solstice, its light crosses the main axis and touches the central stone, as if opening a portal of fire golden. The ancients gathered there to celebrate the reunion of heaven and earth. It was science, rite, and prayer at the same time. In all these places, the stone was not just matter, it was condensed memory. The civilizations understood that the earth is alive and that certain points vibrate like strings of a cosmic instrument. They called these points the shoulders of the world, the places where the sky rests for support. Speak. When we observe the Nazca lines, the towers of Sacsayhuaman, or the ruins of Tiwanaku, we notice the same pattern: solar alignments, stellar precision, and an architecture that seems more designed to dialogue with the sky than to house bodies. The portals were antennas, the stones, oscillators of spiritual energy, and the human being, the mediator between dimensions. There is no record of wars at the origin of these places, only communion rites. People who looked at the stars and saw in them the mirrors of their own soul. They believed that the cosmos responded when the earth sang, and the song was made of stone light, and silence. Today we call it mythology. But the word myth, at its root, means that which remember the invisible. Every stone circle, every lone menhir on the horizon, is a reminder that the humanity has already known how to talk to the infinite, and that forgetting does not erase the pact, it just puts him to sleep. If these portals were erected to heaven, the next mystery is understanding who taught this science of harmony and proportion before the waters covered the world. Because perhaps the secret of these builders has not been lost. It is just waiting to be remembered. There is a fine line between myth and memory, and perhaps that is where the world, before the flood, still breathes. Ancient texts from Sumer, India, and even the Andes speak of an era in which the gods walked among men, teaching the use of stars, sound, and light. It was a nameless civilization, scattered like fragments of a broken mirror, and in each fragment the same echo. Earth and heaven were once united. On the Mesopotamian plain, clay tablets describe beings that descended from the heights, the Anunnaki, bearers of mathematical, astronomical, and spiritual. They did not come to dominate, but to align man with cosmic harmony. They taught how to build temples in the form of ziggurats, stepped towers that they reproduced the soul's path of ascension, step by step, to the abode of light. Each structure was a physical reminder of an invisible principle. What is above reflects what's underneath. This wisdom was not isolated. In Egypt, priests spoke of Thoth, the messenger of the gods, who had taught the art of sacred construction, the geometry that allows the stone to resonate with the vibration of the spirit. In India, the Vedas describe vimanas, floating cities and celestial vehicles, and rituals that connected earthly fire to stellar energy. In pre-diluvial America, legends of the Uros and Aymaras recall luminous masters who they came before the waters and disappeared when the firmament was torn. These myths, scattered and simultaneous, seem to narrate the same event, an age in that knowledge and faith were one language. Architecture was not a material achievement but a permanent prayer. The stones served as the nerves of the earth, transmitting energy and intention. The stone circles, the triliths, the monoliths, were circuits of consciousness. Today, scientists discover that many of these sites are arranged on lines magnetic, the so-called ley lines, subtle flows that surround the planet. Coincidence? Or a trace of an energetic map that the ancients already knew? The same precision that aligns the pyramids with Orion's belt and Stonehenge at birth of the solstitial sun suggests that this global network was designed by a planetary mind, not by isolated cultures. Before the flood, perhaps human beings did not seek the divine outside themselves, but within the vibration of the earth. Did you know that the stone responds to sound? That the heart beats at the same frequency as the magnetic field? And that between the sky and the ground, there is a silent language capable of opening portals, not in the space, but in consciousness. The flood, then, was not just physical. It was the drowning of memory. Humanity has forgotten the original sound, lost the star map and the ability to translate light into form. The portals closed as fear replaced silence, and the man began to raise walls, not passages. But there is something that cannot be erased: the memory. In every myth, in every ruin, the earth still repeats the same song. The invitation to remember the time when being human meant being a bridge between worlds. If you feel that the past seems to call the future by name, stay. Because forgetting is not the end. It is just the veil before remembering. There are stories that cross all cultures, but none resonate with such unanimity. As for the flood, from Genesis to the Epic of Gilgamesh, from Mayan myths to Aboriginal songs, all they speak of a great purification, an age when the sky wept and the earth drowned in memory. But what if the flood was not just a divine punishment, but the symptom of a cosmic oblivion? Ancient wisdom said that everything in creation has a rhythm: birth, expansion, fall, and rebirth. When humanity forgot the harmony between the worlds, the imbalance became inevitable. The earth, sensitive as a living organism, reacted. The poles moved, the winds changed direction, and the ocean rose above the mountains like a cloak of oblivion. Archaeologists find traces of water catastrophes on all continents, layers of marine sediment on ruins, fish fossils in deserts, and walls submerged in Japan, India, and even the coasts of Egypt. At Yonaguni, carved blocks rest beneath the sea with angles that suggest the entire city sunk. Science calls it post-glacial submersion. Ancient traditions call it the Great Silence. The flood was the moment when the bridge between the human and the divine was broken. The waters took temples, languages, and constellations, but they also took what was most sacred, the memory of the path. The stone portals, aligned to the S-stars, lost their purpose. What once vibrated with subtle energy became just immovable rock. The survivors, dispersed across the mountains and plains, carried fragments of that memory. Therefore, distant peoples keep the same words. After the waters, raise the stones. And that's what they did. From reborn Egypt to the Andes, they began to build portals again without knowing exactly why what. The ruins became altars for a faith without origin, the echo of a knowledge that time failed to destroy. But something had changed profoundly. Man began to fear the sky. The stars, once companions, became silent judges. The sound that previously opened portals was replaced by prayers of repentance, and so the idea of separation was born. God above, man below. The temple ceased to be a ladder of return and became a shelter against punishment. However, some lineages kept the secret. Priests of Chaldea, Druids of Britain, Tibetan monks, mountain shamans. Everyone kept the same code. The stone listens. The sound awakens, the heart remembers. They knew that the waters did not destroy knowledge. They only immersed it in sleep. In silence, the stones waited. Thousands of years passed, and the wind continued to blow in the megalithic circles, like a whisper of time saying, everything that was can be again. The flood did not end with the withdrawal of the waters. It still happens every time a man forgets who he is. But the reverse is also true. Redemption begins every time someone listens, within of himself, the rumor of an ancient ocean and decides to cross it in search of the lost light. And it is during this crossing that we rediscover the clues left by the ancients, marks, symbols, and constellations, the secret map of those who never stopped believing that the earth still talks to heaven. After the waters receded, the world woke up like a body trying to remember a dream. Survivors walked over newly formed lands, guided by memories, fragments of light, and in each region they began to rebuild what was left of the sky in stone, sound, and symbol. These were the clues left by those who remembered. In Egypt, the priests looked at the stars and saw in them the reflection of the pyramids that stood on the sand. The alignment with Orion was not a geometric quirk, but an attempt to restore the missing link between man and the cosmos. They knew that each stone, placed at the right frequency, emitted a silent chant. The pyramid was more than a tomb. It was a beacon, a spiritual antenna that projected consciousness upwards. In South America, the builders of Sacsayhuaman stacked blocks that defied gravity. Its walls fit together with molecular precision, as if they had been shaped by heat or sound. Andean traditions say that the stones danced when the priests sang the name true of them. This simple sentence perhaps holds the key. Vibration awakens what sleeps in matter. The verb was power, and the music, a portal. Further north, on the plains of England, Stonehenge maintained the solar pact. Each solstice, rays pass through the circle and rekindle the bond between time and nature. Eternity. Thousands still gather today without knowing that, when celebrating the sunrise, they repeat the gesture of the ancients who sought to open the return passage. In India, the Kailasa temple was excavated from top to bottom, as if the builders had shaped the rock with a heavenly remembrance. The scriptures say that the temple came down entirely from heaven in one night. Perhaps the metaphor reveals something else, the idea that the true temple is not built. It reveals itself when consciousness aligns with the divine vibration. And in Japan, among the waves of Yonaguni, lies a submerged city that defies official history. Staircases, platforms, columns, as if someone had tried to fix the design of a portal in stone before the sea took it away. Swallow. Divers report a strange sensation, absolute silence but vibrant, like if the place was still awake under water. The same pattern is repeated throughout: astronomical precision, reverence for sound, obsession with the solar cycle. These similarities are no coincidence. Our memories of planetary knowledge fragmented, preserved in symbols and myths. The serpent that swallows its own tail, the labyrinth, the cross inside the circle. They all speak of the same spiritual science, the energy that rises, turns, and returns. The ancients knew that the human body is a microcosm of these portals. The spine is the ladder, the heart is the cornerstone, and the mind is the axis that turns towards the top. That is why, in so many cultures, initiations took place in caves or stone corridors, physical representations of the interior crossing. Today, science is beginning to rediscover what the spirit already knew. Resonance studies show that specific frequencies can alter states mental and emotional, getting closer to what others Tigos called it, vibration divine. Quantum physics describes reality as interconnected energy fields, a modern explanation for what temples have always symbolized, the unity between all things. The stones, the myths, and the stars are fragments of the same language that still echoes in the collective unconscious. Every time someone is moved by a ruin or feels goosebumps upon hearing an ancestral song, it is as if an ancient interior door was opening ajar. And maybe that's why these clues keep calling to us, because deep down they're not just memories of the past, they're reminders of who we are. Stones do not speak with words, they wait, and whoever knows how to listen to them will hear the same call that echoed before the flood. Remember, the portal never closed. It was your heart that forgot the way. The wind that touches the ancient stones is the same that once touched the faces of the builders forgotten. It carries an almost imperceptible murmur, as if time itself whispers. Nothing was really lost. Perhaps humanity never stopped walking between the portals. It just passed to do it in silence within yourself. Because stone portals are not just monuments. They are mirrors. Each reflects what the soul is capable of recognizing. The memory that the divine does not. It is elsewhere, but it pulses with every beat of the human heart. The ancients knew that the universe is a living body, and that all matter is a song condensed. The stone vibrates, sound shapes, the thought lights up, and when these three come together, matter, vibration, and consciousness, the invisible becomes passage. Looking at these monoliths today is like staring into the mirror of our own amnesia. They stand there, motionless, like silent masters, reminding us that the ascension was never about ascending to the heavens, but about descending to the core of being. The staircase that the ancients drew in the ziggurats and pyramids is not physical, it is interior. Each step represents a state of consciousness, and the top, the reunion with the source. After the flood, when fear replaced knowledge, man learned to separate the sacred of everyday life. But perhaps true wisdom is the opposite, understanding that the divine is precisely in the simple gesture, in the sound of the water, in the vibration of the ground, in the shine that the sun leaves on the stone. Everything speaks if we know how to listen, and that's what the portals ask of us. Silence. Not the empty silence, but the one that allows you to hear the pulse of the world. Because within the silence lives the same power that once lifted ton blocks with the lightness of a prayer. The power to believe, to align the body with the frequency of the soul, and thus, move the impossible. In all ages, a few have kept this memory alive. They were alchemists, monks, shamans, poets, men and women who knew how to transform matter into symbol and symbol into light. They understood that each physical portal is just a reflection of the inner portal, the luminous center where the earth touches the sky. That's where the mystery remains open, even when the world calls it a ruin. Maybe that's why the oldest civilizations never wrote manuals about their temples. They knew that wisdom is not transmitted in words, but in presence. Anyone who crossed a stone circle was not looking for answers. They were looking for transformation, and upon crossing the threshold, something inside changed forever. Consciousness passed through the mirror. Today, in the 21st century, we look again at these same stones with curiosity, scientific and spiritual hunger. We call archaeology what perhaps is actually nostalgia. We look for in portals what we forgot to look for in ourselves, the way back home. Modern technology begins to prove what the ancients intuitively knew, that the universe is vibration and intention shapes reality. Quantum physics calls it wave function collapse. The wise men called it prayer. They are just different languages for the same miracle. Consciousness creates the world that... Observe. When we understand this, the temple rebuilds itself from within. Every cell in the body becomes a living stone. Every breath a chant that realigns the bee to the music of the cosmos. And suddenly the world shines again, as it did before the waters. There is no more separation. The human and the divine are two reflections of the same flame. The path of portals is the path of remembrance. It requires no maps, no formulas, just courage to silence and feel. And when that silence happens, the stones speak again, not with words but with vibrations that the heart understands. They say, "Remember, traveler, the world is wider than your eyes can see. Bridge is still standing. Just cross it. Therefore, when you are in front of a mountain, a ruin, or even a simple stumbling block, try listening. Close your eyes and feel. The same energy that powered entire civilizations still pulses beneath your feet. The same fire that lit the temple still burns in the center of your chest. And the same sound as Briyu, the ancient portal, still vibrates in the silence between two thoughts. If this message touched something for you, subscribe and follow us. Your soul may be remembering the path, because perhaps the true portal is not in the stones that time left, but in those that still live within us, the stones of faith, love, and memory. What if what we call the end is just the beginning of a memory that the soul has not yet forgot?